Welcome to today's 5-minute professional learning presented by CAPITALISE Education. The characteristics and functional impact of students on the autism spectrum varies significantly. As the saying goes, once you have met one child on the autism spectrum, you have met one child on the autism spectrum. As such, it's really important to have a deep understanding of the characteristics of your student and the functional impact. In today's professional learning bite, we're going to look at a hypothetical student on the autism spectrum who has challenges associated with communication. According to Beth Saggers at the Queensland University of Technology, every person on the autism spectrum is unique and their needs will be reflected differently. For this reason, it's really important for teachers to be able to discern the characteristics of their students on the spectrum and the functional impact of those characteristics. The characteristic of our hypothetical student on the autism spectrum is he has difficulties with communication. The functional impact is that our student sometimes appears confused by language and terminology used in multiple Australian curriculum learning areas. He often uses the incorrect definition of words that are common across different curriculum learning areas. So, what can we do to support this student? For our hypothetical student whose characteristic is that he has difficulties with communication and functional impact is that he often appears confused by language and terminology used in multiple Australian curriculum learning areas. He often uses the incorrect definition of words that appear in multiple curriculum areas. We can have a look at the Universal Design for Learning framework. We can specifically look at checkpoint 2.4, which is promote understanding across languages. I love this quote. No tool is omnicompetent. There is no such thing as a master key that will unlock all doors. Rather than wielding a single tool, generalists have managed to collect and protect an entire tool shed, and they show the power of range in a hyper-specialized world. For this reason, classroom teachers need a range of tools in their tool shed. This is what I like about the Universal Design for Learning framework. It provides you a range of tools to apply during the planning, teaching, and assessment cycle to break down barriers to learning for all students. Because the Universal Design for Learning framework is not a specific pedagogical approach, but a way of thinking about overcoming barriers to the planning, teaching, and assessment cycle, we now need to think about specific pedagogical approach we're going to use in the classroom to help overcome the barriers experienced by our hypothetical student on the autism spectrum. Within the classroom, we can use a structured approach to clarify any differences in meaning of the same word across terminology used in different learning areas. One approach we could use to support our hypothetical student on the autism spectrum is to take a structured approach by creating a word wall where we clarify the word we're looking at, the learning areas, where the word fits within the specific terminology of that learning area, the definition of each of the terminology, an image of the terminology to help clarify visually for our student on the autism spectrum what that word means and whether the word means the same thing in each learning area or it's different. In this case, in mathematics, science, and English, the word negative means different things. And this is highlighted by the images. Taking a structured approach means that as a classroom, the classroom teacher explicitly models and scaffolds this process for the student. over time, speaking out the teacher's cognitive thoughts, eventually doing it collaboratively with eventually the aim would be for our hypothetical student on the autism spectrum to be able to do this process himself. And the classroom teacher needs to be conscious of transitioning to independence for the student. Eventually the student might not need the table anymore, but may be able to do this process internally rather than using a specific framework table. Whilst initially it's important that the teacher consciously model and scaffold for the student on the autism spectrum the process of identifying the differences or similarities in language between terminology used in key learning areas, it is also important for the classroom teacher to think about how he or she will support the student to develop independence in relation to this process. As Johns and Cooper states, while people's individual needs will differ, the starting presumption should be one of independence rather than dependence, with educators providing the support needed to maximise this. Thank you for listening to today's 5-minute professional learning bite presented by CAPITALISE Education. At CAPITALISE Education, we believe that teachers achieve a lot more in collaboration than they do in isolation. As the African proverb goes, if you want to go quickly, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.